NBA Live Final, and our team crushed, placing 4 teams in the top 10. The Run Pure logo was popping in the leaderboard. Run Pure members and employees were arm in arm on this year's leaderboard. JSU led the group with 2 top 10 lineups, finishing in both 6th and 9th place, hauling in over $225K. Big T took 10th place for $67K. Run Pure member and contributor Record 62 rounded out the top 10, finishing in 8th place for $100K. Congrats to RPS member Eden Cohen for also taking home over $17K in the tournament. Our NBA team has been on fire, and you can catch them for free over on our YouTube channel. Just make sure you head on over, subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you don't miss when they go live. And you can check out Big T and Stevie on our free NCAA show Thursday through Sunday morning every day this week. Also, sign up today for a premium subscription to Run Pure Sports and take advantage of our promo for a limited time only. Use the promo code PLAYERS33. You can knock 33% off your first payment on a Run Pure subscription. That includes SaberSim plans to take advantage of this great deal to access premium videos, core plays, and projections from the top DFS players in the industry. Thanks again, guys, and make sure you head on over to Run Pure Sports today and take advantage of our great promo before it expires. Find out why all of our members are crushing NBA and PGA by accessing our premium content.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the UFC MMA show on RPS. Of course, the usual crew today. I'm DC, you know that. Titletown, Keg, talking UFC Fight Night 204 in London, breaking it down live from Kentucky at Big T's house. Me and Title are here, separate rooms. Keg, looks like you got your normal spot, and pretty fun card. A unique one, I think, guys, where there's several very, very large favorites. I think making lineups specifically, Title and I were talking earlier, could be tricky. You might have to, take an uncomfortable dog in terms of DFS. Betting wise, of course, we've got Keg breaking it all down, and we're looking forward to it. So, Keg, I know you had a little toothache going on. Hope you're feeling all right. How's it going otherwise?
I'm doing well, man. I'm looking forward to the card for sure. I think this show, 4 straight weeks, has done a really, really good job of sending people in the right direction, all 3 of us. So, yeah, I'm excited. 2 things worth noting, though, for this card. Number 1, UFC cards at the O2 Arena has its challenges because it's one of the only times they use a 30-foot cage. It's a bigger cage than even the 25. Usually translates to more space for the 125 to 155ers, which means less finishes. And number 2, London is notorious for some really bad decisions in fights that involve English fighters. So those are 2 things to keep an eye on.
That's good information to start off the card. So I believe the Apex, where I think last week's fight card took place, is smaller, and then there's like the normal UFC cage, right? And this is even 5 feet bigger than that. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Yep.
Okay. So yeah, more room to fight. That's interesting. I'm sure we'll talk about that as we break down this card. Title. I'll ask you how it's going. I kind of know we've been hanging out in the last couple of days, but what are your thoughts overall on this card? And what's going on, man?
Yeah, good seeing you again, DC. Yeah, great card though. The fight nights now back in London or not at the Apex, really exciting. And with so many hometown fighters, man, the crowd is going to be into it. It's going to be a really fun one for sure. Lock time, because it is in London, it's 1:30 p.m. Eastern is the lock tomorrow. So if you're usually you build your lineups after that, 3 o'clock, whatever, don't miss lock, obviously. 1:30 p.m. Eastern. We got 12 fights. We lost 1 on the card with Nathaniel Wood. But like you said, a lot of big favorites. But the main event, which is minus 175 to finish, 5 rounds, of course, is priced 8,300, 7,900 because of the pricing algorithm with DraftKings. They don't take into consideration the 5 rounds. So we have very good one fight in the mid tier. But after that, yeah, you're going to need a big dog to come through. And I'm excited to dive in, see what Keg's got to say, see what you got to say. And yeah, hopefully you can stay hot, continue to pick some winners and make some money.
Yeah, let's get to it. First fight on the card, 125 flyweight fight between Cody Durden and Muhammad Mokaev. Durden's been, I think this is his fourth fight maybe in the UFC. I think he's 1-2 or 2-1. Looked decent to me. But Muhammad Mokaev, I think, is kind of the headliner here, right? He is coming in right now a minus 400 favorite. He is undefeated. He is from the same region of the world. We talk about it often, but he's like a refugee. He's like, if you look it up on SureDog or whatever, it says he's from England, right? But the truth is he's kind of fights like Khabib style, right? I mean, that's kind of what you're hoping for, what you expect. And a big favorite here. What is he, 21 years old, Keg? So, I mean, I can't even remember a fighter this young. Maybe there's been one or two, but they're not many. So obviously a top prospect, a lot of hype behind him. And we start off this card with a massive favorite who, you know, I assume is going to be popular. We certainly know DFS-wise, these fighters tend to score well with control time. You know, watching back his tape, Keg, we'll start with you. I saw a lot of like kind of crazy wild striking out of Mokaev and then takedowns that he would get easily, but obviously against lesser competition, right? This is his first fight in the UFC. First question, I guess, Keg, is that minus 400 line justified to you?
Mute, Keg.
Mute, Keg.
Sorry. There's been so much steam behind this kid for so long. Like I heard about him when he was 18. He started becoming a big deal when he was 16, 23-0 as an amateur. He was like a two-time international mixed martial arts federation world champ as an amateur. So you don't often hear about fighters until they turn pro. But this kid's been on the world stage for a while.
Was he forced to fight as an amateur? Do you have to be like 18 to be sanctioned by the?
I'm not. I don't know.
You normally don't see 23 amateur fights, and he's so young that maybe that's a thing.
He's the youngest kid currently on the UFC roster right now.
Yeah,
I know that. And there's a ton to like with him. You said a lot of what was right. He's pretty wild sometimes on the feet, and reckless. I mean, he's fast hands, some power, throws a bunch of kicks. Yeah. But the big thing is he doesn't really care if he gets taken down because he's a machine on the ground. Unbelievable this kid is. And I like Cody Durden. I actually don't think he's that bad. I think his striking's average. But I mean, this line opened up Mokaev minus 180 a long time ago. It's up to 350 or last time I saw. I almost bet the 180, but I decided to wait for the method of victory props. I don't mind multiple ways to attack the fight. I think you could take sprinkle some late money on Mokaev because I don't think Cody Durden's gas tank's great, but I would say Mokaev inside the distance is probably the only way you can attack the fight. Other than that, I don't have much.
Yeah, I mean, makes sense. You know, I think he kind of knew that perhaps a lot of the you know, his previous fights where he kind of knew he's overmatching his opponent, right? And so he's just like, I just saw like a ton of like crazy leg kicks where he would like even get his like crazy head kicks rather, where he would like get his, you know, leg caught in the air, but he just doesn't care. He just, you know, it's like if you fought someone that you just knew you could beat, you could just kind of throw whatever at it, and it doesn't, you know, kind of almost with irregard for the consequences of what might happen. Obviously different in the UFC. So I think from a betting perspective, 400 too much for me. Title. We talked a little bit about this card before we jumped on air, and like we said at the top of the show, you might have to take a dog or two on your DFS lineups. So I kind of know Durden seems like a guy you might be interested in taking a dabble or two on your own lineups.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, there's just so many big favorites on this card. You're going to have to take a shot on a really big dog. Mokaev right now is sitting at minus 380. The hype is definitely real. I mean, it makes sense. He's 21 years old, his long amateur career, 23-0 in amateur, like you said, DC. You don't see that. I don't even know. I just expected he just wanted to like make sure he was legit. He got all of his stuff out of the way before you, because the pro record is what people really look at, obviously. So I thought
that makes him what, 29-0?
6-0. Yep. 6-0 pro record, 23-0 amateur records. I'm in the long-awaited UFC debut. Going to be a very fun fight. But the thing is, he's 21 years old. He's taking on a grown man, 30 years old, in Cody Durden, and we see it all the time and stuff. And I saw a kink in my game and I try to adjust, is like, man, the physical strength from a 30-year-old man that's fighting against grown men for a long time compared to a 21-year-old Cody Durden's the hardest fight Mokaev has had to date. This is the biggest level step up in competition. And you're telling me he's minus 380 against Cody Durden. We're on the feet. Cody Durden's a primary wrestler, but on the feet, I still think Cody Durden has the advantage. I do think he hits harder. As far as the wrestling, Mokaev has the advantage on the mat. But man, the physical strength advantage, I think Durden can have success early. Now, what Keg said in the big thing is the gas tank for Cody Durden is a big concern for sure. And that's where I think the later this fight goes, if I'm betting Mokaev, I think that third round finish prop, let's see, let me pull that up. I think that's interesting because early rounds, I think the minus 380 is going to look pretty scary. And if it doesn't, then man, Mokaev is going to absolutely style on him. But Durden's no joke. I mean, he's been in the UFC. He's fought way better competition. So the gas tank's the biggest concern. Mokaev wins round 3. I'm seeing plus 850 on DraftKings. That would be my favorite bet. Just a sprinkle on it. But Cody Durden as a live dog, plus 290, 30 years old against a UFC debut. I mean, there's just still a lot of question marks that we haven't seen. So why not take a shot on a really favorite heavy card? Durden's going to be what, 10%, 11%, something like that. I like a lot of the other big favorites. So still some unknowns. I'm going to have some of the dog and be overweight on Durden. You can't fully fade Mokaev, obviously, because he is a wrestler. If he wins the takedowns, the top control, then he eventually probably breaks Durden if that's the case. And then a third round victory would obviously score really well. So minus 190 to finish inside the distance. Two primary wrestlers. There's a lot of path to big scores here, but I definitely will have some of the big dog in Durden because you have to pick some on this card. You can't just play all favorites. I'm curious.
Mokaev's chin has been tested, right? 29-0. Has he been in fights where it's like you lost a round? I think you could go both ways, right? I'm a little bit torn on this one because it's like maybe he's just that dominant. We'll see. I mean, obviously tomorrow's going to answer a lot of questions about just how good he is, even in his first fight. But we've seen flops from hyped fighters in their first UFC debut. This isn't the type of fighter, just in a lot of ways that I would typically expect that from, but it happens. So yeah, I don't mind. I like that, him to finish it in the third round prop, again, you don't have to put much on that at plus 800, you get that big number, but yeah, DFS wise, I would be nervous to have too much of Mokaev here with other big favorites on the card that I feel a little bit better about. So really, really interesting first fight to start it off. Seems like we're kind of a little bit on the fence about this one. Maybe, closely, properly lined or whatever you want to call it. So good first fight. Yeah, just the last thing, we're on the fence. I mean, we're seeing minus 380 for UFC debut 21. I'm talking about just the value of the line, right? Exactly. Yeah. I just want to make sure that people understood that. It's obviously not, it's not a pick 'em, obviously. No. We're not saying that, but it does seem like certainly all the value has been bet out of the line. And I think Durden will have his moments in this fight just from watching Mokaev's previous fights. I think he's going to leave openings to get hit. And, you never know what's going to happen in a fight. So I think Durden, I think he's more of a live dog, perhaps, than some of the other giant underdogs on this card. We'll see. I agree. Next fight on the card, Corey McKenna, Elise Reed, women's fight, obviously here. McKenna coming in, minus 270, another big favorite. Seems like a lot of our recent cards have had a lot of closely lined fights. This one, most of the fights have some pretty sizable favorites. We'll go back to you, Keg. Corey McKenna, Elise Reed. What do you see here?
Yeah, I mean, Elise Reed was pretty beat up and thrown to the wolves in her UFC debut against Sarge. If you watch that fight, it was really, really bad. Yeah. I do think that there were multiple other options she could have fought, but whatever. She was beaten badly, and it's mostly because she's really green. Black belt in Taekwondo, I get it, and her striking skills are okay, I guess, but she does not have much power. Her hand speed's slow. I haven't seen anything from her in her career to have my money anywhere near her right now. And as for Corey McKenna, her skills on the feet don't impress me at either. But when you make Kay Hansen look like she actually knows what she's doing, but you beat her in a close fight, it tells me my money also should be nowhere near you. So from a betting perspective, I don't think anybody should get involved in this fight because it's like low-level women's MMA at its finest. Pass.
Yeah, call us haters if you want, but some of these fights, we just don't have that much interest. I'm with you there, Keg. There's no way I'm taking the minus 270 here against two fighters. This one seems somewhat likely to me, Title, to go to decision. From a DFS perspective, their pricing, McKenna's expensive, 8,800, Elise Reed, 7,400. Seems like a potential fade to me, but interested to hear what you have to say between McKenna and Reed.
Yeah, I mean, I just think everyone's going to approach it as kind of a fade because McKenna, pretty big favorite, supposed to go to decision. And I think a low own Corey McKenna, where her path is the takedowns. She can get top control. We just saw Elise Reed, as Keg said. I mean, she got beat up real bad against Eubanks. She showed nothing off of her back. And Corey McKenna, she's only 22 years old, training out of a good gym and Team Alpha Male. I think we see improvements from her. And I think Elise Reed, I mean, on the feet, it's going to be very competitive. It's going to be very gross. But I think McKenna knows that her path is the takedowns. I wasn't impressed with Reed off of her back. And like I said, Eubanks beat her up real bad. McKenna's made some improvements. We haven't seen her for over a year, which I think it's not always a good thing for sure. But when you're 22 years old, and if you're just in the gym training, getting better and better with good partners around you, it could be a good thing. And that's what I'm hoping in this one. So I'm hoping 8,800. She's going to be, I put on the playbook 23%. Man, I got to probably lower that right now to like 16% projected ownership because people aren't going to, the top upper tier is so loaded. No one's going to play them. And we see how, even in decision, 15 minutes, we see how much takedowns, top control can add up in something like this. So I play 20 entry max, play 150, all that. I'm going to be overweight on Corey McKenna just for the ownership. And the path to a big score that way. I don't think Elise Reed's any good. I'm not picking her to win. So it's Corey McKenna or nothing for me. Is a betting line? Yeah, I'm not betting minus 235 or whatever. What is it? Minus 275 right now? Or something?
Yeah, 270, something like that.
Yeah, like minus 265. I'm not betting that or wouldn't touch anything like that for a betting perspective. But there's a path in DFS, I think, at low ownership, and you have to find a way to get different on this card. So that's how I'm approaching it.
All right, we'll move on to another fight. This one, the first closely lined fight that we'll talk about, Jack Shore and Timur Valiev. Essentially a coin flip. Obviously, depending where you look, you can get a little plus number if you have enough options on that. Two impressive records: Jack Shore 15-0, Valiev 18-2, and frankly, pretty impressive numbers. Again, I think numbers probably mean less for MMA than they do for most other sports that you're trying to break down from a DFS perspective. But Jack Shore, a lot of takedowns. Both these guys, as you might expect from 135ers, high volume. And yeah, I mean, certainly if just looking at the numbers, to me, Jack Shore would be the favorite, obviously closely lined. So I'm interested, Keg, to hear your take on this one. How good are these guys, and how do you expect this fight to go down?
Yeah, this is a great bantamweight scrap. The money's been slowly flowing in the direction of Jack Shore.
Yeah.
And we talk about it all the time. Wrestling's the premier skill set in MMA. That means, the kid has it in spades. So when you average almost 5 takedowns per 15 minutes, that's serious. Now, it's hard to gauge how good his striking is, because there hasn't been anybody that stopped Jack Shore from doing exactly what he wants to do, and that's wrestle. His top control is serious. He could still do damage from full guard. Doesn't really need a leg outside the body to really rain down good ground and pound. And he's yet to be taken down, which makes sense. Why would you want to take him down? Now, Timur Valiev really only has a few losses, and he avenged the one against Chris Gutierrez. He should have finished Trevin Jones, but he gassed out and ended up getting stopped. He is substantially better on the feet than what we have seen from Jack Shore. But part of the reason why I've struggled with the fight is because of how high I am on Jack Shore's wrestling. But if he can't get Timur Valiev to the ground, I think that Shore's in big trouble. I think it's a very tough call here because Valiev is good. Best fight odds open this up Valiev minus 180. It's a typo what they have there. So because of where Shore is from and over there and where the fight is, I expect the money probably keeps flowing that way.
That was what I was going to say. If it's gone from 180 to coin flip, you would expect it to Jack Shore maybe closes at 130 or something like that. I mean, so if you want the other side, right, I would wait. I would bet Valiev.
You always see a little buyback in MMA when closer to the fight. From a betting perspective, I lean Jack Shore by decision at plus 160 with a little sprinkle on Timur Valiev knockout plus 550 as like a backup if this does stay on the feet.
Yeah, makes sense. We'll go over to title. I think, again, this is a fight that I'm struggling with as well. Sounds like Keg a little bit on the fence. One thing I did notice, Jack Shore, like you said, Keg, hasn't not been taken down. A lot of takedowns. His control time is somewhat low for a fighter with as many takedowns as he has, right? Like he's just barely over. I work on some custom metrics, and one of them I look at is control time per takedown, and Jack Shore's is pretty low. So, Keg, maybe he's doing damage, maybe he's aggressive when he gets the takedowns, but he's not just. You see some fighters that get the takedown, and it's like the other guy just can never get up. So far, at least, that hasn't been the case for Jack Shore's opponents. They have been able to get back to their feet. And if you're saying that Valiev is the better striker, maybe he does have a shot at that knockout. So it may be an interesting angle there. Title, give us your thoughts here on Shore and Valiev.
I mean, Keg literally took every single word out of my mouth in this one. So, it's clash of styles. It's I think this is the best fight on the card for real life. I mean, Timur Valiev, Jack Shore. Anytime you see Jack Shore as an underdog at 15-0 with his wrestling and grappling chops,
he's gonna be. It's interesting because there's a $1,000 DK price difference, right? Valiev at 8,600, Shore at 7,600, and that's reflected from the opening line, right, where Valiev came in as the favorite. That's why you see the price discrepancy there. Where obviously, if this line opened at even odds like it is right now, they would have roughly the same price in DFS. Sorry to cut you off, Title. Go ahead.
No, correct. I mean, I always good adding stuff like that in. And yeah, the odds, like the pricing comes out earlier in the week before the odds adjust. So this would be an 8,200, 8,000 or something like that. So ownership, Jack Shore is going to be more popular. The problem is like Timur Valiev. So on the feet, it's Timur all day. Everything I'm going to say is pretty much what Keg's saying. He throws good volume, 5.35 significant strikes per minute. But 11 of his 18 wins are by decision. He's more of a decision guy than a finisher. So the knockout makes sense. You're going to get big. I see someone in chat said plus 650 KO. You can find value of. I think that is interesting. I think that's worth a little stab. But for mainly a decision fighter, and my pick is Jack Shore. We talk about the wrestling. I think his wrestling is grappling. He's going to be more popular at 7,600, which makes it tough. But I was on him like right away in the beginning of the week before the line was already down to where it was. I'm like, man, how do you get Jack Shore as an underdog and not go with it? And I think he can get the takedowns. His wrestling's so good. His BJJ, he takes your back. You're in trouble. Like he can finish this fight too. If it's on the feet though, and Timur can keep it there, he can get up from the takedown and stuff. He's going to piece him up. But I'm hoping Shore is good enough. He mixes in the takedowns enough that this fight goes a decision. I don't want to pay 8,600 for a decision fighter that's going to stay on the feet. So that's why I like Shore. And I think the upside is a lot more. But if you like Valiev, he's going to be low owned. He has upside. If he gets a KO, you'll be happy with it. But I like the wrestling with Jack Shore. And I think he goes undefeated again. 16-0 is what my prediction is. Very good fight, though.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you put the ownership predictions in the playbook.
13 and 38.
I was going to say, I would expect Shore to be one of the highest owned guys and Valiev to be one of the lowest on DFS wise. Rightfully so. I think, like you said, the problem with Valiev is he's not going to, we don't think, get takedowns or control time. So he's not going to get points. Yeah, he's not going to get points that way. And then also he is probably going to get taken down in this fight unless he finishes it very early. And he's not going to score any points, right, when that happens. So it's a tough path at 8,600 to get there with Valiev, even at low ownership. So I'm with you. I think Shore, the play DFS-wise, potentially a big score there from him, right? He could get 6 or 7 takedowns, control time, ground and pound, and then maybe a finish, and you get into the 110, 120 range perhaps for Jack Shore. So interesting fight. Go ahead.
I was just saying, last thing to add, K Fleet Burner in chat said it too. Like the pace Shore puts on is really, really tough. I mean, Timur Valiev is going to be fighting off takedowns, top control, trying to
get like a true, kind of just like American wrestler, grinder, cardio monster. Yeah.
Yep. The pace he's going to put on a pace. That's for sure. Last thing before we get to the next one, Keg, what do you think, or DC, you talk about it too. What do you think the big octagon does for a fight like this? either of you two go at it, because that is very interesting.
I think that it definitely favors Timur Valiev because he's going to have more space to try to evade takedowns.
Do you think do you think like how I'm kind of thinking this?
Shore just like close the distance though. I mean,
I guess he could, but normally it would help the striker.
I'm wondering if with the bigger cage and the threat of the takedowns and all that Timur will throw less volume than he usually does because he's so worried about it and because he can move around and keep distance so much that the 5.35 significant strikes per minute that we've been seeing goes down a little bit, which even lowers his upside even more, which I'm concerned about too.
Definitely possible.
Well, last question. If this fight goes, we're all on Shore, 3 for 3, picking Shore on a fight that's a pick 'em based on the lines right now, basically. If this fight goes Shore's way like we expect it to, do you think he gets the finish in the end?
Well, either of you. He has finished, I think. Let me check. I got Sherdog up actually right now.
When Keg's looking it up, I'm going to say no, because I just respect Timur Valiev so much. I think it's such a high level fight that he can keep himself off, but I also wouldn't be surprised. I mean, when Shore gets us on the mat, he takes his grappling slick. So I wouldn't be surprised, but I would bet decision, but that's not the contrarian take.
Yeah. I mean, fight goes decision minus 225 on this one, which is pretty high.
I'm seeing 165. I'm seeing, is it?
Okay.
Yeah. 165.
In saying that though, Shore has finished 5 of the last 7.
And you're right, DC. It's minus 225 goes decision plus 165. So yeah, you're correct.
Yeah. It seems like Shore's best path is just to kind of overwhelm him with cardio, which could be the case. Hard to predict. Should be a good fight. We'll see. But 3 for 3 on Shore winning this one. Another good fight coming up. I actually think this card is maybe a little bit underrated. I'm excited for it.
It's really good, and the crowd's going to make it even better.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for this one for sure. Nikita Krylov and Paul Craig, 2 fighters again that I like to some extent. A light heavyweight bout here too. 2 guys that can throw down for sure. UFC veterans. I think a somewhat even fight, but it is Krylov coming in minus 190 at the moment. We'll start with you, Title. Just break this down. Give us your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, man, what a good fight this is going to be. Paul Craig really hurt my feelings against the Jamal Hill fight. Jamal fouls him to the ground. Craig pulls guard. And, man, that's when you see Paul Craig jiu-jitsu is just next level. And that's what I'm worried about in this fight with Krylov, because Krylov is very, very good. All around, he's very good. On the feet, he definitely has a big advantage. The man's 27-8. He has 15 wins by submission, 11 wins by knockout. That equals 1 decision. I mean, this man is a killer. He's very good. On the feet at kickboxing range, it's going to be Krylov all day. Paul Craig's a grappler. He's not the best striker. Krylov has good striking. However, we see Krylov like to get the fight to the mat a lot. He wrestles when sometimes I just think you should keep it on the feet where the advantage is, but he likes to go down against good guys on the mat. And I'm worried about that because Krylov, 15 submissions. He's really good down there. But Paul Craig's BJJ is just next level, in my opinion. And I do not think you want to be trying to wrestle. Even though you have good wrestling, I don't think you want to be trying to take Paul Craig to the mat and your arm can be snapped like we just saw with Jamal Hill. So minus 190 plus 165. If it's on the feet, I think Krylov, for an extended period of time, I think Krylov finds the knockout. Paul Craig's chin, it's been knocked out 3 of the 4 times. He's getting up there in age a little bit. His striking just isn't that good. Krylov all day on the feet. But if Krylov takes him down once, man, with Paul Craig on the mat, and it just said there's 3 minutes left in the round, 3 minutes for Paul Craig to find a submission is a lot of time. I'm going to go with the dog. And why I'm saying that is because with how many good favorites and how many favorites I like on this card, when I see Paul Craig at 7,500 in a fight that's supposed to end, knowing how good his BJJ is, expecting Krylov to at least get 1 takedown, that's why I'm going with it. Paul Craig plus 165. I think there's value, but I'm also going to have a lot of Krylov too. I think this is one of the best fights to target because it's a clash of styles. Even though Krylov's good on the mat, Craig's on another level, whereas on the feet, Craig's on another level on the mat. Krylov's on another level on the feet. And that's a fight you like to target in DFS at minus 250. So that's why I'm not going to play Timur Valiev at 8,600. I'll play Krylov at 8,700. Yeah. And Paul Craig has so much upside at 7,500, as we've seen him submit really good people. So very, very good fight. Going to go with Paul Craig. but it's not a confident pick. Like Krylov has so much upside too. That's why I like playing a lot of lineups in DFS because you can get overweight on both of them.
Yeah, I'll say this. This one, I don't feel confident in my pick either way. I do think this could be one of those fights, Keg, where after it's over, like sometimes you watch a fight and after it's over, you're like, man, that guy should have been minus 600, minus 700 if they did a rematch. This one, I could see an early finish for either fighter, but then perhaps if they fought again, it could go the other way. Because I just think the skill sets, for one, they're big light heavyweights, right? With just dangerous skill sets. You do see that reflected in the line. It is a big favorite to finish inside the distance. And this is one where you kind of got to drop them on the table and say that, I think this fighter can finish it in this way. So interested to hear, Keg, because I'm on the fence on this one.
Yeah, I think Title brought up a lot of my concerns about this fight because Paul Craig is just pure magic. You look at him, he's got no business beating Magomed Ankalaev. He's got no business beating Jamal Hill. And somehow he's such an MMA wizard that he finds a way, right? But he's
the type of dog you want to bet on,
True. Yeah, very true. His striking's pretty awful. And what's crazy about a lot of his fights is his opponent initiates going to the mat, which makes no sense. But Nikita Krylov is levels above Paul Craig on the feet. If he stays on the feet, it cruises. I think his gas tank is above average. His footwork's good. Technique is good. And I think his fight IQ, which nobody talks about a lot, is way better than Paul Craig. Paul Craig does some things that make me scratch my head.
But how can you doubt that? I mean, this guy's finishing guys that he's an underdog against, right?
Yeah, but it's only because he's a wizard off his back and he gets taken down and he finds it. But sometimes his fight IQ on the feet, it leaves a lot to be desired. But what worries me is of the 8 losses that Nikita Krylov has, 5 are by submission. And for some reason, his fights, they just naturally make their way to the ground all the time, right? So if that's the case, I worry about Paul Craig finding a sub from his back here. But I got to be honest, I think Nikita Krylov wins this fight. I really do. Am I going to bet it? Probably not. If I was going to, though, I would probably take Paul Craig by submission.
Yeah.
And Nikita Krylov by what's the double chance? Nikita Krylov by knockout or decision? Oh, it's minus 150. You would have to decide: do you take Nikita Krylov by knockout or do you take him by decision?
I like the knockout personally.
So plus 150 by knockout for him. Paul Craig by submission plus 350. You have the 2 most likely outcomes in the fight, probably.
Not a betting expert on these, but this does seem to me like it could be a fight that potentially offers up a good live betting opportunity between perhaps rounds 1 and 2, where Krylov maybe beats him up on the feet a little bit. Craig can't, because Craig, he looks oftentimes like he might be losing until he doesn't, right? Like you're talking about the fight IQ, and
yeah, definitely. Yep.
And it's like it could look like a dominant first round for Krylov, but then as soon as it goes to the mat, it could end at any time, and maybe you could get Paul Craig at, I don't know, plus 400 or something, plus 500 after a big Krylov round 1, but Craig's not really damaged, and he's still got the same opportunity to finish that fight in the same way in round 2 that he did at the beginning of the fight. Things didn't break his way. The thing about Paul Craig, things seem to break his way eventually. That's just, I mean, you just look at the record and what he's done against really, really good fighters, like you mentioned. He might just have that little kind of, magic dust on him where he just knows how to get the job done. It seems like that so far. So really, really exciting fight between Krylov and Craig.
And last thing, it could be like last week, the Brundage Dalcha fight. Dalcha was beating his ass for every single second.
Crazy comebacks last week, by the way. A couple of them, man. Yeah.
And then you make one mistake trying to go for the takedown. Brundage finds the neck. You give Paul Craig, he could get beat the whole time. You find him one chance to grab a limb, grab something. and he's one of the best BJJ players out there. So yeah, I mean, you can be losing until you're not in MMA. That's for sure.
Yeah, a lot of talk about that fight, but I do think it's going to be a very, very interesting one to see how it all goes down. And there's not, I could see it going either way, honestly. So I do kind of like touching that Craig dog money and maybe a submission. And DFS, I do think he's, like we said, you're going to need a dog or two on your DFS lineups. Craig seems like a decent guy to bet on from that perspective. So we'll move on to this point. Next fight, Sergey Pavlovich versus Shamil Abdurakhimov.
Yep,
Maybe kind of close. Pavlovich rather, minus 300. So we're going back to another big favorite. Title will start with you on this one. What do you see?
Man, you look at it, minus 500 and inside the distance. Grown men, the two heavyweights out there. I mean, first of all, you look at it. Obviously, you guys all listen to this. You know how much I take into consideration age and stuff like that. 21 years old for Sergey Abdurakhimov. He is 40 years old. He got knocked out three times in his last fight against Dawkins. In the first round, it easily could have been stopped. The second round, he gets pretty much knocked out again. Then he has to take more damage on the ground. You don't love seeing that as a 40-year-old. Sergey, on the other hand, he has not fought for over 2 years. Which is interesting at 29 years old, though. Like, I just hope he's in the gym. I hope he's getting better. He's a KO specialist. He's 14-1. And man, this man hits like a complete truck. He has an 8-inch reach advantage. Shamil, the chin, as we saw last time. I mean, I don't think the chin's necessarily bad, but when you get hit from a 265er with power, it doesn't matter what your chin is. You're just going to go out. That's what the human body does. Shamil, I think, is going to need the takedowns in this one because that range, Sergey hits like a truck. Shamil is outgunned on the feet. Going back to Sergey, I mean, his UFC debut, the UFC gave him Alistair Overeem. Just think about that. How many people have to be very, very high on you? Multiple people. There's not one person that can just write off and say you're fighting Overeem. Multiple people in the UFC thought this guy was that good to fight Alistair Overeem in a UFC debut. You just don't hear about that.
In a fight, they probably wanted him to win that fight. If they're giving Overeem
yeah, because you'd still be undefeated. I mean, 15-0, you beat Alistair Overeem your debut. Like, you'd have everything going for you.
Yeah. Like, so, they don't want to. Yeah.
Yeah.
An undefeated heavyweight is a cash cow for the UFC, right? If they can get to a title fight, you give him Overeem on the. I think that's a really good point. He did lose that fight, but bounced back with 2 wins. And he over 3 fights, his average fight time is 2 minutes and 33 seconds. So
it's like a truck.
Yeah, and big dude, and again, we haven't seen him fight for what, it was 7 total minutes, something like that, over 3 fights, but high volume for a heavyweight, especially for anybody, but especially for a heavyweight. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe you guys have an opinion. I mean, he can sustain that type of volume, but impressive nonetheless. Like you said, a massive reach advantage, 11 years younger, and a giant favorite here. 14-1. His one loss is UFC debut to freaking Alistair Overeem. So impressive resume for sure for Pavlovich. Let's start to you, Keg. What do you see here? Is this line justified?
Yeah, I think that this is a pretty low-level heavyweight scrap. I mean, the fact that Shamil Abdurakhimov is ranked 10th in the world is a joke. He's a 40-year-old grappler, seems to be losing his edge every time we see him fight. I understand he's won the last couple fights, but I don't think much of anything about his last 2 opponents. They're awful. And I will probably never bet back Shamil Abdurakhimov again, considering his age. Now, Sergey Pavlovich, he carries serious power, and I don't think he offers much more than his striking, but he probably doesn't have to offer much more than that. My big issue with Pavlovich is the level of competition that he's faced thus far, other than Overeem, the loss, is pretty bad.
Sure.
This is probably a step up in class for him, despite how busted Abdurakhimov is. So I think that's concerning, but I do think that he finds the kill shot. The problem is he's minus 200 by knockout. So, I mean, you can't bet the fight, because if you were going to bet the fight, that would probably be what you're betting.
What about first round knockout? Because a lot of volume in his fights, they tend to finish early.
What's the line?
I'll find it here. We're round one. Pavlovich in round one is even odds.
That's bad. I guess, but those odds aren't great considering.
Yeah, I hear you.
5 minutes. But yeah, I guess you could take a stand and be like, I think that he gets it done in the first round, and then at even money, I don't mind that, but you can't touch the knockout prop at -200. That's just a no-go.
I think I would rather cut those odds in half and take just to finish it in round one, because I think he's going to throw right away. And from what I saw, I just don't know if Abdurakhimov can avoid the volume, right? He just seems too slow, too old and too slow. I think he's going to get tagged early. So I kind of like Pavlovich to finish this one early on, titled back to DFS perspective. 9K for Pavlovich. You think he gets this one done early?
You take first round knockouts at 9K for sure. Yeah, I do. But the thing is, too, it was Shamil. We're talking about big underdogs, all this stuff. If Shamil wins, it's going to be a big boy score because he's going to get the takedown. And I think he's going to be able to have success with it. But I don't think he's going to be able to get the takedown, which is why the odds are where they're at. Yeah, Sergey's way quicker on the feet. He hits way harder.
Too slow to get takedowns is what I expect.
I'm with you too. But we're gonna get to some of these, like Tupuria. Like I ain't gonna pick nobody against Ilya right now, stuff like that. Sure. So at 7K and a -500, that he's gonna be pretty low owned. There is a path where if he does win, it's a big score. But Sergey in the first round by knockout is what I have too. I just think he hits too hard. He's too mobile on the feet, and I don't like 40-year-olds.
Yeah. 3 for 3, it sounds like on Pavlovich, and I'll have certainly exposure to Pavlovich early. Yeah, I think he gets this job done early, first round. I kind of like that. The more we talk about it, I like him to finish it early. So we'll see, and we'll move on to the next fight. Mike Grundy, about a -190 favorite over McCann Amirkhani. This one obviously not a heavyweight fight. This one going down at featherweight, so we go from the big guys to some smaller guys. Two, at least by the numbers, low volume strikers, especially for 145ers, which obviously from a DFS perspective isn't great. Two guys who do like to wrestle though, so looks like in my opinion, maybe a somewhat even matchup, at least on paper. But Grundy is a sizable favorite. Let's go over to you, Keg. Grundy, Amirkhani. Who do you like here?
Okay, so you're right. They're two wrestlers. I can only look towards Mike Grundy here, okay? Now, I know that he lost to Masvar Evloev, but I didn't think that he looked that bad against him. His grappling, strong point, just like it is for McCann Amirkhani. And you might go as far as to say that maybe Amirkhani is the better wrestler technically, but for only a round until the gas tank starts to deplete. On the feet, it feels like a pretty even scrap, I think. Both guys have shown okay hands. But I think that the fight comes down to the intangibles. I believe that McCann Amirkhani is neither tough enough, nor does he really have the endurance to be an MMA fighter. I think that Mike Grundy has at least proven that he has the toughness to fight through the bad spots of a fight and last in there. Okay, now it looks like McCann Amirkhani gasses out and then gives up a lot. And that's why I agree with this line move in the fight. Grundy deserves to be taking money, in my opinion, because the fight feels like even if he has to weather through a first-round barrage, I think he becomes an overwhelming favorite to win round 2 and 3 just based off his will and gas tank alone against Amirkhani. Yeah. So from a betting perspective, I lean Grundy inside the distance, because I do think that he will break Amirkhani at some point in round 2 or 3 and find a way to get the finish.
Yeah, it makes sense. These fights are tough for me to break down because it's two similar styles. They're the same age, roughly the same size. You know, both guys coming off of, Amirkhani's lost 4 of his last 5, but Grundy himself has lost 2 in a row. Possibly a loser leaves town match here. I'd assume so for Amirkhani at least. I don't think he's coming back if he loses this one. So, title Amirkhani and Grundy. What do you see?
Yeah, I mean, you guys hit on the head. It's two primary wrestlers on the feet. Yeah, you're talking low volume. They're low volume. 2.14 significant strikes per minute for Grundy. 1.37 for Mir.
As low as numbers as you're going to see, basically.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in the UFC and you're I mean, it shows what you're good at, though, and that you have to be pretty decent at it if you're still around in the UFC somehow doing it. Yeah, the thing about these two is they're so similar in a lot of areas. Both have awful gas tanks. Amirkhani is one of the worst you'll ever see. He pretty much has one round of gas tank and then it's over. Grundy, he might have 8 minutes of gas tank, which is a little better than Amirkhani. Why this fight's 140 to go or to end inside the distance plus 140, so it's actually supposed to go to decision. I think this fight's a lot more likely to end inside the distance than that number due to the fact that both do gas, and I expect one of them to have a lot more success than the other in the wrestling, in the top control, beating the other up. And if you're tired on the bottom and stuff like that, I think we could see a finish in this fight. 8,500, 7,700, man, like you'll want a grappler who's going to get takedowns, who's going to get the top control, beat him up a little bit on the feet. I think the winner has good path to scoring pretty well in this fight. Grundy's finished 8 of his 12 wins by submission. Makwan's finished 11 of his 16 wins by submission. So there are finishers as well. I just think at the end of the day, Grundy has better wrestling. Amirkhani has better grappling, but I think and obviously they're both good at both. That's just how I see it right now. I think Grundy can stay safe on top and beat up Amirkhani and wear him down, which is why the line I think is where it's at. It opened at minus 110 a piece. I was all over Grundy. Now it's sitting at minus 195 plus 165. That number is a little wide now. You missed the boat when it was at minus 110 and sitting at minus 195 now. So that's tough to bet. If anything, I'd probably throw a sprinkle or something on plus 300, Mike Grundy inside the distance. I think he is the one with the success with the takedowns. I think he is safe on top. I think his wrestling is good. And Amirkhani's gas tank is just so hard to trust at this stage of his career. But that doesn't mean I'm not going to have any Amirkhani at 7,700. If he wins, I think he puts up a good score. We're talking about all these dogs on the card that it's tough. We haven't got to a lot of the big time favorites where I don't have interest in the dogs, but I have to have some interest at 7,700. But Mike Grundy is my pick. Both guys, if you look at the takedown numbers, both these guys land 3.78 takedowns per 15 minutes for Grundy, 4.12 for Makwan. So they're going to be takedowns. This fight's going to be on the mat. We know what that means for DraftKings. I think the winner score is pretty good. Grundy's my pick.
Yeah, you guys are smarter than me, but the main thing I get from you guys talking about these fighters is just can't stop talking about how bad Amirkhani's gas tank is.
So bad.
Yeah.
I can't say that he can go 15 minutes right now with Pavlovich the way that Grundy did. I can't say that right now.
That's why I'm surprised. Plus 140 done inside the distance. I will say too, on the feet, they both aren't good. I give the advantage to Grundy too. I think he has more power. Not sure if that's a hot take for who's better on the feet, but I think the power with Grundy, and I've seen a little improvements out of him. Again, not saying this fight's going to be won or lost on the feet, but like if someone gets a knockout on the feet, I would be shocked if it was Makwan instead of Grundy.
I'm looking at two bets here because I think I want to bet Grundy to finish this fight against a guy who you guys just have seems like massive more questions about this gas tank than I can remember you guys talking about any fighter in the 5-6 shows, 7 shows a week.
That's why it's a win or go home for him because he can't fight that long.
But if Amirkhani gasses out and gives up and he just this could be potentially probably the last fight in his UFC career if he loses, maybe his last fight ever. Does Grundy finish it with ground and pound or does he finish it with the submission?
I mean, it's so hard to tell, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's why the plus 300.
The distance.
I would take the plus 300. I wouldn't try and get to.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Cool. We'll move on to the next fight. We're getting to obviously some bigger fights here. Ilya Tupuria, who's been very, very impressive so far. Massive favorite in this one. Several big favorites coming up as we progress through this card. Tupuria minus 600 or so. Again, 550 to 650 depending on where you look. This one is massively expected to be finished inside the distance, obviously by Tupuria. Doesn't go to decision. I'm seeing minus 400 to minus 500 depending on where you look. I don't really expect this fight to go any differently than the market does, I suppose. It's just Keg. I know enough talking to you about fights. You're probably not laying the 600, the 550. You're looking to find how it's going to end and hitting a better number, right? So you're nodding. So tell me, I'm sure you think Tupuria is going to win this fight. how does he do it?
Yeah, I think that if he can get his weight issues under control, he's a legitimate top 10 talent at featherweight. Now, I know he took the fight on short notice, right, Title? And it's also a step up in weight for him.
Correct. First time at 155.
Right. Now, his offensive wrestling and MMA BJJ game is really, really good. I think he's the real deal. But I also think his striking is underrated. He might not have the best technique in the world, but he does carry serious power. And if he hits you clean, he could end you. But I do think that the verdict is still out on his opponent, Jai Herbert. What we know for sure after his last fight, his takedown defense is awful. If your takedown defense is just, sub 30% against any average opponent, he's not going to be able to stop Tupuria from taking him down.
Yeah.
Unless Jai Herbert can knock Tupuria out, I think, on entry. Now, I do think Herbert's a good striker. He does have 6 inches on Tupuria, but his chin isn't great, and he can also be knocked out if he's caught clean. The odds right now, in my opinion, in terms of the money line, despite the step up in weight for Tupuria, I think are kind of justified. I think he's that good. But the submission prop plus 110 for Tupuria is kind of what I'm targeting. I don't mind anybody taking a stab at that price. I like that submission prop. I think if he gets him to the ground, he can finish it.
That makes sense to me. You look at like the quote unquote tail of the tape here. Tupuria, like you said, 6 inches shorter, giving up 8 inches in reach, but fantastic wrestler against a guy who seems like pretty bad takedown defense. 9 years younger. You just kind of add it all up. I expect this fight to hit the mat early with Tupuria on top, and I like that submission call at a close to even number compared to putting up minus 600, because you just never know what's going to go down in a fight. So I do prefer that bigger number. DFS wise, Title Tupuria 9,300, one of the more obviously expensive fighters on the card, but a guy who can finish early. Even in a decision win, he likely probably scores pretty well, I think. So I assume you'll have a decent amount of Tupuria in your lineups, Title.
I mean, Ilya is just such a stud. I've been saying for a while, future champ. I wish at featherweight was where I thought it'd be a future champ. He's got to get that weight figured out for sure, because lightweight 155 is a lot harder to be a future champ than 145 is. I think if he gets that at 145, I think he is a future champ. I mean, you look at it, all those red flags, kind of on short notice, up a weight class for the first time as a lightweight. Jai Herbert's no bum by any means. He does hit pretty hard and all that. And Tupuria is sitting at a minus 575 favorite. That just shows how legit this man is. On the feet, yeah, he can get caught on the feet. I still think Tupuria, even with the 8-inch reach disadvantage, a 6-inch height disadvantage, I still think he can knock out Jai Herbert on the feet. Herbert has a dusty chin. His striking's pretty solid for sure, but Tupuria is that dude. I really, really do believe that. But his bread and butter is on the mat. Even though he likes to strike, he likes to show that he can knock out people. His bread and butter has always been on the mat, and I think he's going to get it on the mat. I think the sub prop that's Keg said was my favorite bet in this fight too by a mile. You can get a minus 570 favorite for a little plus money. Man, Herbert has nothing off his back. Tupuria is one of the best BJJ dudes out there. I think he can make this fight look really, really easy if he comes in with the right game plan to make it look easy. If he wants to try and put on a show for the crowd and knock him out, I wouldn't want to play minus 575. I still think he'd get the win. I still think he probably would knock him out. I'm really that high on this guy. I'll tell the freeloaders right there. He's an RPS tag in the playbook. I think he has every single time he's fought. I think he's that dude. Take him down, submit him, collect your paycheck, and move on. I really hope he doesn't think he can stand and bang with them.
One last thing I just want to say, I really am worried in this fight. When you take a look at his inside the distance prop, he's like minus 260.
280.
That knockout is a real threat. Title said, and he was right, Herbert's chin is pretty bad. And even if this goes to the ground, sometimes Tupuria just wants to ground and pound you in the dust. Sometimes he just wants to choke the life out of you. So yeah. I do think that it's a concern if you go one way or the other, but I'm going the submission way. If he knocks him out and he beats me, he beats me.
I agree with you on that though, okay? Because like minus 280, you still don't want to take any minus 280s. You're getting minus 280. You're picking the easiest path to victory, and that is his bread and butter. And you're getting pulled. Yeah, so I'm totally with you. If you lose by the knockout, yeah, you lose. But I mean, I think that's the way to go.
Looks like you can get, if you want, just Tupuria inside the distance minus 225 is out there right now on a few books. You know, that cuts it more than in half just from him winning the fight. And if he doesn't win the fight, it's like because something went wrong, right? And so to me, I think if it goes according to plan for Tupuria, which it most likely will, I think he finishes the fight in the 15 minutes. So I would certainly, you know, just depending on how kind of risky you want to get there, but I would certainly at least cut that cut the money line in half and take inside the distance if you want to take Tupuria or take him by submission, like you guys said. Seems like a decent way to go.
This one's Caesar. I was gonna say I see on Caesar. I thought that was on FanDuel, but I saw plus 150 in the first round for Tupuria. That's on Caesar's. Plus 130 FanDuel. I don't like that as much, but yeah. I mean, I really could see him getting Herbert out pretty early.
Yeah, I think so too. Next fight on the card, another women's fight, Luana Carolina and Molly McCann. Closely lined fight here. McCann, slight favorite, coming in about minus 140. A women's flyweight here, so obviously a 125er. Carolina, the younger fighter, taller, 7-inch reach advantage, which is pretty significant for a 125 women's fight. Two fighters who do have a lot of tape to watch, a lot of veterans. They've both been in the UFC a decent amount of time, decent volume. They do both like to throw. I think this fight probably stays on the feet. Carolina, I believe, doesn't even have a takedown in her UFC career, so she's going to want to throw. I don't know, Keg. This is kind of the fight where you can kind of envision how it's going to go down in your head, where they're both landing a lot of strikes, and sometimes these fights, to me, kind of look at the end where they look like almost like they're sparring matches, right? Where again, maybe that's too much shade to throw at people who are, getting in the cage when we're not. But I think this one has a decent chance to go the distance. Probably a lot of strikes landed for both fighters. I think Carolina gets the decision, but not a fight that I'm especially looking forward to be honest.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'm right with you. Molly Meatball is a fun fighter to watch. She's got toughness for days.
Yeah.
But I do think she gets a little wild. Sometimes her striking technique leaves a bit to be desired. Two things, she's going to bite down on her mouthpiece. She's going to take a ton of damage while she's trying to give a ton of damage because she doesn't move her head. She practically has no striking defense at all. But, she actually can wrestle. You might not know it from watching her fight because all she does is walk forward and eat punches to the face. But, she can wrestle. I'm with you, though. I like Luana Carolina. I've been impressed lately. She's got very solid Muay Thai. 2-time Brazilian Muay Thai national champ, 2-time state champ. She's very strong at range.
The better athlete, in my opinion, as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She uses her reach well. So, yeah, I think that Carolina opened at about a minus 150 favorite. I thought that was a little high, to be fair. The fight felt more like a pick'em at open, but the odds have flown towards Molly McCann all week. But I think it might have jumped the shark now at plus. What last time I saw the odds plus 115. Carolina was. Yeah. Are those?
You can get her plus 120 now on DraftKings.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I don't mind that at the money line price, man. Just taking that rather than even getting involved and trying to pick up a little bit more money by decision because you never know. Who knows? But yeah, I like that. I like Carolina plus 120.
Yeah, I like Carolina here to win as a slight underdog. I also don't mind taking a stab if you want on Carolina by TKO or KO at plus 850 on FanDuel right now, just because we know she's not going to take this fight to the mat. I think it's going to stay standing. I think, again, I expect a decision, but 850 is a big number for a fighter that is going to strike, who is you know, like you said, a Muay Thai champion. She does have good technical striking. Maybe she can land one. Title, your thoughts here, Carolina and McCann.
Man, this fight is probably the least exciting fight on the card that I'm looking.
So. Yeah,
and it's really hard to break down. I mean, everything Keg said about Molly McCann, very tough. Bites down her mouthpiece. Will walk forward. It'll take one to give one. Her offensive wrestling is much improved. People don't talk about it as much, but she has that in her bag. The problem is Carolina, with her massive height and reach advantage, she has really good takedowns. Sitting at 83% is Carolina's takedown defense. And I think she can keep this fight on the feet. Big T, what's going on? I think she can keep this fight on the feet. So, man, like on the feet, 15 minutes, minus 140, plus 120. I have so many fades already in the playbook because this is what I was going back and forth. I said in the playbook, I had these two as a fades because the most likely fight to go to decision. It goes on the feet for 15 minutes. Girls fight. It's just usually one that I always do. But we also see how they throw decent volume. 5.67 significant strikes landed per minute for McCann, 4.11 for Carolina. And we see how some of these are scored where in a women's fight, any single time they touch them sometimes, it's a significant strike. It's different than men's. Sometimes that's just how the scoring goes, and you have to adjust with it. And I'm already fading so many other people. The mid-range is absolutely awful, in my opinion, outside of the main event. There's two other fights. Both are supposed to go on the decision. Both I expect to be on the feet mainly. So I'm just going to land in this range eventually as a last piece here and there. It sounds like you like Carolina or DC. And if you like Carolina, I might bump her up a little bit because 7,800, that's still a $600 price difference from McCann on a card I don't like a lot of dogs and you need some value. Even if she wins a decision and gets 75 points, let's say.
I think she's getting 100 significant strikes in a decision, maybe. Because McCann just keeps coming forward. I mean,
correct. And if this the worry I have a little bit is McCann tries to go for the takedowns, and it's a lot of on the fence fighting for underhooks, cage control like that, because Carolina does have good takedown defense, and McCann likes her offensive wrestling. So that's the one concern why I had it as fade. But yeah, I'm going to have a little bit. I'm not excited about it. The problem is you're parlaying a win in a close fight with a good enough score to be on the optimal. Parlaying a lot of things to be on the optimal is what I like to try and avoid most. So I'll have some as a last piece. I'm not going to like be overweight. I hope it doesn't, but I'm not going to fully fade the fight like I initially thought I did. No strong conviction over here. I'll say McCann because the judges, we talked about it earlier, who the judge is going to give it to in a close decision. It'll be the hometown girl, Molly McCann. She'll get the crowd involved and stuff like that. We're going to talk about a lot of these fights like that. If it goes a decision, it could be a bad decision for the hometown person. That is Molly McCann.
That's a real concern in this fight.
It is. They're awful in London. They are awful in London. So
yeah, I'll be honest, I hadn't considered that angle. I will still lean Carolina. What, she'll be 15% owned, something like that.
I think that it'll actually be a little higher than you think because of how the value is, but it's not going to be anything. So right there, I literally just opened YouTube and LeBear said the same thing. Judges are giving anything close to Molly. So yeah, I mean, but you also can't try and predict what judges are going to do, but it is worth pointing out. But I think she'll be about like 22% just because the value is so bad, but you don't fade someone at 20 to 22%, especially if you think they're going to win.
This is a fight I hope won't decide the winner of DFS contest.
I'm nervous it really could, and that's why I finally was like, I'm not fully fading it.
It's the worst fight on the card.
Exactly.
Especially if it's like a bad decision or something, and they get there in the end. I'm going to try not to let it decide my fate, right? So I'll take maybe a little dabble on both, more Carolina. But I'll be honest, the judging stuff has me a little bit nervous and maybe bumping down Carolina just a little bit. So Enough talk about that fight. Let's move on to another very, very big favorite. Gunnar Nelson, minus 500 over Takashi Sato. What is there? Is there 4 or 5 fighters that are like 400 plus? You don't see that area. Yeah. It's a strange card in that regard for sure. But Nelson, Sato, let's go back to you, Keg. Is this one that you see as lopsided as the line would suggest?
Oh, man, this is a tough one. When I was doing the research, I was like, man, have we seen Gunnar Nelson since we started like Run Pure? No.
Yeah, 2.5 years.
It's been 2.5 years since that fight against Gilbert Burns. Now, Gunnar Nelson, a lot like Paul Craig, is a pure grappling BJJ wizard, okay? Like some of the best on the roster at 170 pounds. And while we haven't seen him in 2.5 years, he's only 33 years old and still has a lot left in the tank. Now,
why hasn't he fought in so long?
I don't know the answer to that, to be honest with you. For Takashi Sato, he also comes in off about a 16-month layoff. He's a solid striker. I think he sits behind a good jab, throws decent combos. He throws more volume than Nelson does, but not a ton of volume, I think, himself. I think that he has big power. It's hard to take a shot from him clean, but it feels like a fight where Sato either knocks Nelson out or Gunnar Nelson is going to submit him. I lean that Nelson submits him, especially when you see that almost every loss that Sato has is by submission. If you let Miguel Beza get his first submission win ever over you, what is Gunnar Nelson going to do to you? Now, the odds open -300. It's ballooned, doubled that almost. So you can't lay that, but you can find Gunnar Nelson by submission at -110.
Yep.
I like that. And, Sato by KO is like 9-1. I mean, maybe you could tiny sprinkle if he catches him. But yeah, Gunnar Nelson by sub -110.
Yeah, I like that call. I will say if you're going with the Sato by KO, looks like FanDuel still has a plus 900 out there, whereas most books are sitting 650 or 700. Again, we're using best fight odds for some of these to compare odds. So if you want to grab that, there's a bigger number out there, a bigger discrepancy in the number out there right now from FanDuel than other books. So grab that if you want to. But I'm with you, Keg. I think Nelson gets the job done here. Title, break down this one for us.
Well, yeah, always price shop. But we talk about a lot on this show. Best Fight Odds does a very good laying it all out, but always make sure to price shop in any sport if you're betting. Yeah, Gunnar Nelson, 2.5-year layoffs concerning. But man, this guy, when he hits the mat, it is over for you. It really, really doesn't matter who you are. This man is that good on the mat. You look at his last 2 losses. You're looking at Gilbert Burns and Leon Edwards. Those are 2 of the best you'll see out there. You go to Sato, Miguel Baeza, and Jason Witt. Jason Witt, he knocks out Jason Witt. Anyone can knock out Jason Witt. That's one of the worst chins out there. I don't think Sato's very good personally. I think Gunnar Nelson, I'm worried about the 2.5-year layoff because I don't know why either. Like, it's concerning to see someone that just fought Gilbert Burns, Leon Edwards, and then just took a 2.5-year layoff when you're at the top of the pinnacle pretty much fighting them. But even if we get a 65% Gunnar Nelson, I still think that's going to be enough. Like, he literally needs 1 takedown, I think, and this fight's all she wrote. This man is this legit. It's the mat. He's that good. Miguel Baeza submitting you, and I like Miguel Baeza. He's costing me too much cheese in the UFC for sure. If Miguel Baeza is submitting you, you got problems. If he's knocking you out,
you're in trouble, 100%.
You're in trouble. And now Gunnar Nelson's going on the mat with you. Yeah, I think you never bet -490. You're going to take the submission win, but I feel very, very confident Gunnar Nelson comes out here and styles on him on the mat. So
potentially a big score in DFS, right? Takedown, control time, and a finish. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. The thing is, I don't even know if this can get out of the first round. I mean, man, he gets us down early. I don't think Sato can last too long, but big score, I think, is a very likely outcome.
And if you want the DC bullshit analysis of the day, I think Nelson looked pretty good in the weigh-ins. He looks confident to me. A nice little grin on his face. So there you go.
I like that.
I'll throw that in there. We'll move on to another very, very big favorite, Paddy Pimblett, barstool athlete. I think the only barstool UFC athlete in the UFC, coming off an impressive win. And he's certainly got the hype behind him, sitting at -550, -600 over Rodrigo Vargas. I'm not a fan of his haircut, but he's a big favorite in this fight. Is Pimblett. Tato, we were talking a little bit about this fight earlier.
His haircut.
Patty the Baddie.
He looks like his haircut kind of looks like
boy Keg.
Pimblett looks like Title when he doesn't get his haircut, right? When he's not nice and trim.
We're starting the poker game. You guys better hurry up.
All right, we'll try.
Oh, Snyder, tell him we're waiting.
We'll get through this fight so we can go take Big T's money on the felt. But before we do, we got to get through Pimblett, Vargas, and a couple more fights. Keg, is the hype behind Pimblett justified in your opinion? Because man, he's a big favorite here.
And this kid gets under my skin, bro. I got to like this whole like where I come from, we don't get knocked out nonsense. He's been dropped like 4 times on the regional scene, bro. But he's found a way to shake the cobwebs off and get it done, right? He's already been dropped inside the octagon, basically, right? But I mean, you know, I don't think his chin's all that. I think that he's going to get knocked out soon once the level of competition goes up. And I'm looking forward to fading him. I don't necessarily think that this is the spot because I do like him. I think he carries power. I think his hand speed's really good. His technique is improving. He could fight from range or inside the pocket. On the ground, a very good grappler. He could finish you off his back. I think his offensive wrestling game and takedown game is good. But right now, I think that the hype slightly surpasses his skill level at the moment. And I'm looking forward to fading him, but not yet. Now, I don't really know what to make of Vargas yet, man. I don't know. His last fight out, I thought he looked okay against Rangju, but he's always had some type of power in his hands. But, you know, he finally started throwing slightly more volume in that last fight, which is a must for him if he wants to win fights in the UFC. But, you know, where it all goes wrong for Vargas, sub 30% takedown defense. That's bad news for him because Patty is a solid wrestler. If he wants to take it to the ground, he's going to be able to. So it's hard to back Vargas. Now, the odds are absurd, okay? So I think at plus 180 by submission is a fair price for somebody that has this type of ground advantage in this fight. It's pretty big. So I think plus 180 submission has been the trend of this card for me. I've been falling on submission props a lot on this card, and I think plus 180 is not bad. I think it's worth a shot.
I kind of want to bet against Pimblett myself, Keg. If one were to do so, would you take the plus 450 that you can get, or maybe a TKO that you can get a plus 1100? Because it sounds like you have some questions about Pimblett's chin.
I tell you what, bro, as many times as I've seen that kid on rubber legs, I would probably take the plus 1100.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know, you just only need to bet, you know, a third of as much or whatever to get the same return. So I kind of like that. I kind of want to bet against Pimblett. Maybe I'll put a little sprinkle there. Title DFS wise, betting wise. I know it's from our talk previously. It sounds like you maybe also not as high, or maybe you think the hype is overblown on Pimblett a little bit. But like Keg, it sounds like maybe this isn't the fight that Pimblett falls, because I do think, I mean, there's hype behind this guy. I do think the UFC probably wants him to win. They gave him a pretty cake matchup here. He's on the main card in England. Maybe not the time to fade him, even though I kind of want to, I'll be honest.
I'll start with the DFS, and then I'll go to betting because I think it's 2 different approaches you should take.
Yep.
Patty Pimblett, when he walks out, he is going to tear this arena down, man. It's going to be one of the coolest walkouts you will see.
I think it might be a little overconfident. I'm sold. Maybe it's this cocktail I'm drinking. I'm not sure.
Hey, I like what you're saying though. We'll get to what when he walks out. He's such a marketable guy. His accent's the best. How he talks, everything like that. I faded him. I didn't completely fade him, but I was on Luigi Vendramini in the debut. I just thought he's coming in with so much height. The line is baked on his personality, all that stuff. He's good. Don't get me wrong. His striking has really, really improved. I was very impressed with his striking against Luigi Vendramini. He's a grappler at heart. Finished 7 of his 17 wins by submission. He gets the fight to the mat. He is a dangerous man on the mat for sure. His striking was very improved. His striking defense is awful. That chin is up every single time. Yeah. So bad. And Luigi Vendramini cracked him. I mean, I thought this fight was over. I was collecting my money. Absolutely cracked him. And somehow Patty Play, he says, I've never been knocked out. We don't get knocked out over here.
Yeah.
I'm I'm sold on that chin right now against a guy like Rodrigo Vargas. Guys like this, I'm sold on it, man. Because if he ate that shot 99%, like I don't know how he was still survived after that shot for sure. He survived. He then got his composure back, and then he just put it on him. Man, he has power on the feet. I was really impressed with the striking. But minus 550, minus 575, minus 630 on DraftKings, like this, like what are you doing with this price? I'm looking to fade him. Rodrigo Vargas, I'm not sure I'm looking to fade him or he's the guy that I should fade him against. But I'm getting plus 450, plus 475 for a betting perspective. It's dog or pass for me. And I think if we go to Indiana today so we can get some sports books in or we find it, I'm placing a bet on Rodrigo Vargas at plus 475. I disagree a little. Not that I disagree. I would take the money line because it's already so good compared to the inside the distance because I believe in Patty's chin. I think the leg kicks could give Patty some problems. I think he could touch him up a little bit, stuff like that. And I think he could win a close decision. Again, man, like who's winning a close decision if it gets to the card? It's probably Patty. You never know. But in a betting line, you just can't touch Patty at this number. Again, I tried to fade him in the first fight. I'm still happy with the progress. Patty was impressive. DFS wise, 9,400 minus 175 to finish. You can finish on the feet. You can finish on the mat. I'm definitely going to play him at 9,400. I'm probably not going to play Vargas at 6,800, not in 20 entry max and below. Maybe I'll have some in 150. Because I don't think he finishes Patty. I think it would be a decision. You'll take any win at 6,800 for sure on a card.
Especially on this card.
On a card, absolutely. I
Title,
think Patty.
What do you think about the submission prop at +1?
I like it. I think that's his best path to victory. Vargas can get on can be susceptible on the mats. You don't want to, like I said, I think these leg kicks, obviously I'm the biggest leg kick guy out here. I think Patty's going to feel a couple of those leg kicks and be like, man, let's get this fight on the mat. And then I'll go back to my bread and butter. I already showed I can win at my fight with a knockout. Let me show my submissions. So I really like that. And I think that's the best path to victory. But if you're on a betting DFS wise, I'm on Patty. I think the more likely outcome is he finishes the fight. Yeah. For a betting perspective though, plus 450, you can be wrong a lot more than you're right. But if you hit it, that number is tasty. So DFS Patty, betting, not Patty.
Yeah, Tyler, we might have to take a drive to Indiana tomorrow morning. I got to have a little money on my guy Vargas in case he pulls off this upset. I want to,
because if not, we're watching that. Like, are you serious? What were we doing?
Yeah, exactly.
I really am looking forward to fading him. I'm just not going to do it here.
No,
yeah. Next fight, probably right. They'll give him someone if he runs through Vargas. Yeah, they'll give him someone.
He went from Luigi Vendramini to Vargas. Like, why is his next fight way easier? Probably because it's in London and that. Yeah. But man,
they want him to win as well.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, we talk about that a lot. I think that's a real thing, honestly, the matchmaking.
It definitely is a real thing in MMA.
Yep. Yeah, overlooked in my opinion. 2 more fights to get to. Before we do, I got to talk about the RPS, the stuff we got going on. Obviously, we got baseball, figured out the CBA. They're coming back in a couple of weeks. We've got Keg giving the plays out, titles playbook for MMA, NBA still going on, PGA, all that stuff looking great. And we do still have a promo code out there for not much longer. Not sure exactly how long, but it will be gone soon. Players 33 will get you 33% off your first month's payment at RPS. Join the movement, get in Discord, and you'll be happy you did. I'll say that much. So again, Players 33% off. I know a lot of you guys watching are members. Thank you for that. Thank you for watching live or on demand if you're watching that. But if you want to join us, Players 33% off your first month's payment. All right, 2 more fights to get to. Both of these fights, pretty much coin flicks. Arnold Allen and Daniel Hooker fighting at 145. Hooker down a weight class, right? And man, did he look shredded on the scale. About as shredded as a human can look, right? You go anywhere beyond that, and you're like in the hospital.
It looks fake. It literally looks fake.
It's fake. Yes, you can.
I only look slightly worse when I do it.
I've been hitting the trails, but I don't look like I have like 9 individual muscles in my shoulder like Hooker looked like in that photo. So he will be giant for this weight class. I think that's pretty much a given, given all the water weight that he must have cut to get down to 145. So he's going to be big. Hooker's, kind of been up and down. Is he? Yeah. Coming off a loss. obviously, Mokaev, a very, very tough fight there. But I still think, even though he's lost 3 of his last 4, I think the Hangman Hooker is still a good fighter that has, his record doesn't show his true skill, in my opinion. I know, 21-11, lost their last 4. Yeah, you could reasonably have the opinion that Hooker is on the downside. I tend to kind of agree with that, but listen, Arnold Allen in his own right is a very, very strong fighter, 17-1. This is an interesting one. I don't have a super strong take on this one to begin with. Hopefully I will by the time you two experts stop talking. So, Keg, break it down, Allen and Hooker.
Yeah, these last 2 fights were the hardest to call and the easiest to call for me because this was really hard. I am sky high on Arnold Allen. I think that he is a complete and a well-rounded fighter. Very good boxing. I think he sits behind a great jab. He has great footwork, has really good wrestling game. The 2 knocks on this kid are he really hasn't fought anybody despite being 8-0 in the UFC. And he doesn't throw near enough volume as I would like him to. But aside from that, I think it's really hard to find a knock on him. Now, when you look at Dan Hooker's recent run, you say, wow, 1 win in his last 4. What's wrong with Danny Hooker? It looks like he doesn't have it anymore. Bro, Islam Makhachev is better. Dustin Poirier is better. Michael Chandler is better. Yes. I mean, these are world-class opponents.
And there's no shame. These are what? Top 5, for sure, top 10 guys.
Right. Before that, though, he's beat Nasrat, got a win over Felder, James Vick, Ali Quinta, Jimmy Miller, Gilbert Burns. I mean,
fought everybody.
Yeah, Dan Hooker is still super, super legit. So this came down to me, for me, was the scale. I said to myself, if Hooker looks really sucked out, I'm taking Allen. If Hooker looks good, because he's huge for this division and because he's gonna pick Arnold Allen apart from range in this gigantic cage, I really think that's going to be the problem. And he looked great on the scale to me. I thought he looked really good. And he looked like he had energy, wasn't lethargic. So for me, I think I'm going to, despite how much I love Arnold Allen, I think I have to go with Dan Hooker here.
Yeah. I'm still on the fence, Title, because I think Keg kind of made the cases for both these guys, which I can make myself. So let's see if you can talk me or Keg or the viewers or yourself into either one of these guys.
Yeah, I wish I could.
Yeah,
that's why I'm glad you went to Keg for. I mean, it's so tough. I was hoping Hook. I mean, I don't know. It's not bogus of me.
We got strong takes coming on the next fight. I'll say that. Spoiler alert. So
all of us do. Even though Keg, we haven't talked. All of us have strong takes in the next one. Man, so what I'll say, in DFS wise, I think this fight goes to decision. I think it mainly stays on the feet. So I don't like this fight nearly as much in DFS.
This is 3 rounds, I assume?
Yep. So I don't like this fight nearly as much as I am excited to watch it in real life and find out what the career path for both these guys is going forward.
Yep.
Exactly. So DFS, it's easier for me for sure because I don't like, I'll like same as that McCann fight. Last piece, a Hooker and Allen, they fall in my lineup. Sure. I'll play either of them as a last piece. I'm not going to jam them in. I'm not going to try and get overweight, stuff like that, because I do think it's 15 minutes on the feet. Arnold Allen has good wrestling. If someone's going for the takedown, it's going to be Arnold Allen. Could he have a little success? Yeah, maybe, but Hooker's way bigger at 145. Hooker's fought all these other studs. Hooker's such a good fighter. He hasn't gone down to 145 in 6 years, and he's at the age of 32. A little red flags about that. The chin is a little concerning in this one. I'm concerned about the chin. If Arnold Allen hits you, he hurt Yusuf on the feet. We just saw what Sadiq Yusuf did last fight. Arnold Allen has some power. He can hurt Hooker on the feet. The cardio, I'm a little concerned about. Coming down a weight class at 32 for the first time. I mean, you could tell how he looks on the scale. You can tell it's still a hard weight cut. He looks phenomenal. Earlier in the week, though, there's a lot of pictures out there. It looked pretty concerning with how the weight cut was going. But what do you expect? Going down to 145 is someone as big as him. First time in 6 years at 32. That's going to happen. He looks absolutely phenomenal on the scale. So I'm writing an update in the playbook right now because I said on the show we were going to talk about it. Hooker looked very good on the scale. Arnold Allen was my pick. I still think I'm going to go with him. I said in the playbook, I think he's the best fighter that the casuals who don't follow MMA a lot or haven't followed it too much recently. The guy fights pretty much once a year. Fought once in 2021, once in 2020, twice in 2019, once in 2018, once in 2017, once in 2016, 50. Like the guy literally just fight once a year. So, which is unfortunate for sure because he has so much talent. But why a lot of people don't know about him. He's on an 8-fight winning streak. He just come off a unanimous decision win against Sadiq Youssef, who is a good fighter. But man, if you look at the level of competition, I'm not even going to have to read out Islam, Dustin, all the people that Keg noted off. It's such a step up from for Arnold from Arnold Allen compared to Dan Hooker. Man, what Keg said and the biggest concern in the playbook, he just doesn't throw the volume, Arnold Allen, compared to Dan Hooker, where I'm concerned about winning the minutes, but I think he can hurt Hooker on the feet more and have the bigger moments than I think Hooker will against Allen. And I think Allen can also mix in a takedown maybe once or twice and have some success. That's the big thing. What do you think about that, Keg? Can Hooker stuff all the takedowns, keep it in the feet, and keep it at range? Or do you think
I think he's going to be able to keep it on the feet, Title. I think you're dead on about the chin. I think you're dead on. I worry less about the gas tank. He's always been pretty fit. Even that 5-round war against Poirier, where he got the piss beaten out of him, and he was still pretty spry. So I worry less about the gas tank. The chin is a problem. That big cage and how long he is, I think he's going to be able to stay on his feet.
To keep it on the feet, yeah.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, in DFS wise, I don't like this fight nearly as much as a lot of the other fights because I think it goes to decision. I think it mainly stays on the feet, and I want finishes on a card like this.
I'll throw in one more thing. Correlation is not something we talk about often in MMA. It's a giant deal in baseball, football, even to some extent the NBA. Not usually a big deal in MMA, but we've talked about the judges a few times. Allen is another guy that is from England. And if you think the judges, like, it sounds like it's a legitimate concern. If you think the judges are going with the England fighters, this could be a close fight that could be a 29-28 in either direction.
Correct.
If you get one bad decision in England's way, you might get a couple of them, right? So you could make lineups for DFS-wise that are the English fighters, right? There's several of them on this card. Just something to consider if you're, if this is the last piece in your lineup and you've got 3 fighters already from England on your team, maybe you go with Allen over Hooker if that's something that you want to consider. Because it wasn't something that I was thinking about coming into the show, but we've been talking about it, and it makes a little sense, especially in this fight, which I do expect to be closely contested, could go to the distance. And if it is, you wouldn't be surprised if maybe the judges lean slightly in Allen's way.
For sure. Last thing, Jay said in chat, do you think Hooker will take down Allen? I do not think Hooker will take down Arnold.
No.
I think it would be the other way if that happens.
I feel pretty good about that part of the fight. Last fight on the card, Aspinall and Volkov, another fight that is very closely lined. Aspinall is the slightly favored fighter here. 4 fights in a row wins for Aspinall. He has been dominant. 3 first-round wins, 1 in the second round, 3 by KO, 1 by sub. He's looked phenomenal. And I know me and Title, I think, are on the same side as this one. So I'll go to Keg first to, I think, make the case for Volkov, and then Title will go to you to tell him how wrong Keg is. So Keg, go ahead.
I will not say that first before Keg talks. I will not be telling how wrong Keg is. Keg is never wrong. Keg, go ahead.
All right.
Go ahead.
All right. So I thought that I base my betting always on value. Now, it's hard to do in MMA because sometimes you might be taking the fighter that you think may lose the fight. But if you do that every time and stick to the value, you're going to be profitable long term. Now, this fight reminds me of the Chris Daukaus Derek Lewis fight. In that fight, Chris Daukaus was being priced like he had hung with elite level heavyweights. But I didn't think that he had been in there and beaten anybody that was of the caliber of somebody like Derek Lewis. So he failed at it, right? Now, in this fight, as high as I am on Tom Aspinall, and I really do think right now he is the best prospect in the UFC heavyweight division by a mile. And I like him a lot. but I think that he's being priced in this fight like he's already beaten the likes of Fabricio Verdum 4 years ago when Volkov beat him, or even Walt Harris, or even a Overeem or a Tupuria. Tom Aspinall's best 2 wins are a 42-year-old Andrei Arlovsky and Sergey Spivak. After that, it falls off a cliff. So Aspinall has looked amazing, but I think on the feet he's really good. He can roll to a high degree, but the guy's cardio hasn't been tested past the midway point of round 2 since May of 2016, mostly because he's destroyed bum after bum after bum. We know what Volkov can go 5 rounds for days. We've seen it multiple times. That's an unknown for Aspinall. Another thing nobody's talking about is he's never fought in front of a crowd since joining the UFC. He's only fought in front of fans, that Cage Warrior gyms that they packed. So now he's going to fight for the first time in front of 20,000 people at the O2. Any normal human being on the planet's going to have nerves at the start of that fight, right?
You can certainly make the argument the opposite way, right? I mean,
why?
The crowd's going to be behind him.
Yeah, but that's a lot of pressure, no?
It is, but I mean, I'll still take the hometown kid against
this is what's undisputed. You can't dispute this. Volkov is more proven. He's more tested. And the fact that he is plus money when Paddy Pimblett's a $5 favorite on this card is wrong. All the value is on Volkov, no matter who wins this fight. So I have to take the value, even though I think Aspinall can win this fight. Sure, he can, yeah. But I have to take the value with Volkov.
I get it. I'm a Volkov fan as well. He's a great fighter, no question. I think Aspinall potentially, I wouldn't be shocked at all to see him win the heavyweight belt in the next couple of years. I think he's that good. I do like that he's at home here. I get what your point. That's a good point. I hadn't thought, that he hasn't fought in front of a crowd in a while. Maybe he gets an adrenaline dump or something, but he doesn't strike me as a fighter that's going to be a negative effect for him.
Are you concerned that he hasn't gotten past the midway point in round 2 in 6 years?
Yeah, because he's dominated everyone. I get it. Title, I know your pick is Aspinall here, but kind of break it down for us how you think it's going to go down.
I just think he's better in every single area of the fight, except the one thing that I'm worried about is the cardio. And if this fight gets out of the 3rd round, you're live betting Volkov.
Let me stop you just real quick. Do we have any reason to question Aspinall's cardio other than we haven't seen it?
I think he was slowing down a little bit in that Andrei Arlovsky fight. I do believe he was a little bit, but then what? He goes to his bread and butter. He takes him down. He submits him like it's nothing. It ain't easy to finish Andrei Arlovsky in the UFC.
But you don't see heavyweights just busting at ass for 5 rounds anyway, right? That's just not.
Don't you think the default position on an unknown is bad?
I do, but not when. The thing about him is, like, I've been saying for like the past 3 fights, this guy's going to be a future title holder. Which now, like, I'm so high on Gon Francis, but like when you believe someone is that talented, like it's minus 120. We're not talking about a minus 250 or anything.
I agree with you. Well, those are impressive odds when you consider who he's fighting.
For sure. You open at plus 125, then he's got the buy. So yeah, right when I saw Aspinall's plus, I hit it. Right when I was like, Aspinall's plus money again. Yeah. The thing I will say too, Volkov, for sure, the cardio, like all that. Last fight though, last fight with Volkov, he looked tired. He was tired against Marcin Tybura. He cannot come out this fight like he did last fight. Otherwise, he's going to get knocked out first, second round. It's going to be over really quick.
I do agree. I agree with you. I was disappointed in that fight again.
Me too. I was all because I was like against Cyril Gane. I was like, man, like he looked really solid against what like.
Yeah,
and I was what happened?
He did get a 3-round unanimous decision, but
I agree.
Yeah.
If he came out like that against Tom Aspinall this weekend, it's a 1st round finish, I think. But like, I don't know. The thing is, Volkov massive, so I don't think Tom Aspinall is going to be able to have as much success with like the takedowns. Like, if he gets him to the ground, he can have success for sure. It's really hard to get Volkov to the mat. He's a huge man.
You're 6'7", I think.
Exactly.
You're saying Curtis.
I think you made a great. I get it, title. I think I totally get all the reasons why. So I'll be sitting there saying, "Yep, that makes sense" when he wins. You know.
I mean, it's a real. And the thing is, like, I know people in chat. I told in the playbook I wrote, I'm gonna lock Tom Aspinall in 20 entry or below. It's pretty much what I do in the main events. I pretty much lock one of the fighters. It's a $3 20 entry max. I treat it as like a single entry. You have to make stands. I said in the playbook, though, for people that use it, like the only they play is the $60 stuff. Don't go 100%. Go 70-30. Go 65-35. Volkov has so many paths to a victory. There's a reason it's minus 120, plus 100. I myself, though, I like to make stands on a main event. And especially in a fight like this, I'm so confident that it's on the optimal. Obviously, it doesn't have to be, but you look at the mid-range fights. Dan Hooker, Arnold Allen, I think it goes a decision. Molly McCann and Carolina, I think it goes a decision. I don't think this fight goes a decision. If it does, you get 5 rounds, and Volkov throws pretty good volume. I'd be surprised to see Tom Aspinall win a 5-round decision. I really, really would.
I think there's a chance. I think there's a chance Volkov's range is so good that he can keep this at distance, right, and maybe out technically strike Aspinall. Keg, is that something you see?
I mean, I definitely give Aspinall the edge early. But yeah. I do think that Volkov is going to continue to come out with the same output round after round after round. And yeah, I do think the later it gets, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I personally just think Aspinall finishes him in the first 2 rounds. I mean, he's finished all 11 of his fights. The man hits like a truck. If it does find the mat, he's growing. The thing is 9 wins by knockout, 2 wins by submission. Everyone thinks he's a knockout guy. He's been training with his dad as BJ. Go ahead, Keg.
I was just going to say, it's worth noting, we were saying a lot of the same stuff about Chris Daukaus when he got slept by Derek Lewis.
And guess what, Kay? I lost 15 G's on that fight. I'm not betting 15 G's on Tom Aspinall in this one. I learned my lesson on these heavyweight fights. It was the most miserable time watching that because I knew in the first 20 seconds, I knew I was dead. I knew it. So you're 100% right. And DFS-wise, I lose my DFS and my stand, sure. I'm not betting an extra 5 figures on Tom Aspinall. I learned my lesson on that. So you're absolutely right. And I could see that. Volkov's very live. That's why the line is where it is. You have to make a pick. Keg, like I said, never would hate on a pick like that. Totally get what you're saying. Instead of betting the inside or instead of betting the money line, I'm taking the inside the distance. Plus 140 is what I see right now. Is that the best price? Let me check quick.
I get it. The pick makes sense.
Plus 145, plus 140. So you can price shop a little bit, plus 50 at some other offshore. But I think it is inside the distance. And if it goes a decision, I do think Volkov probably does get the nod with the cardio. But like I said, man, that last fight with Tybura really left a bad taste in my mouth. Tybura did shoot for a lot of takedowns. He made Volkov work. But Tom Aspinall hits like a truck, man. He really does. Very fun fight. When you're hyping someone up as the next title holder in the heavyweight division, though, you can't jump off right now. And Volkov's the guy. He's not a gatekeeper by any means, but he is the upper echelon gatekeeper. Like, if you beat him, you can fight for a title for a while. If you don't beat him, then you can. So he's the perfect guy like that. Really, really fun fight. Tom Aspinall's my boy, though.
That seems to be the trend for these discussions. We do agree on most of these fights. And I think it's safe to say we've had a pretty good run as a trio breaking down these fights. Hopefully continue that tomorrow. We'll be back next week, same time, same place, doing it all again. We really do appreciate you guys, whether you're a member or not, watching this show, supporting us. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. We were planning to keep this one to an hour. Never happens. I'm going to just kind of give up on that dream, and we'll just block off those 90 to 120 minutes, because talking fights with you guys, always a great time. We appreciate everyone watching, of course, and we're looking forward to the fights tomorrow. Win or lose, it'll be fun to see the violence. We'll be back.
Always fun with the crowd too. In London, fight night finally going. The world's opening up a little bit, it seems. So it should be a lot of fun.
Good stuff. So same time, same place next week. Thanks for watching to everybody. And hit that like, hit subscribe, and join us at Run Pure Sports. Promo code PLAYERS33, 33% off your first month's payment. For Title, for Keg, I'm DC, and we'll check you next time.
Good luck, everybody.
Later.